This week we've had American President Donald Trump stating that he would withdraw the US from the Iran nuclear deal, a deal which is multilateral and has nations from Europe, Russia, China as well as Iran to commit to a non-proliferation deal. This comes out of the context of a region which sees America and its European allies pour billions of pounds worth of weapons into not only the Gulf nation states but also Russia getting in on the act, investing into arms deals, air defense systems, as well as deals with Iran and its neighbors. We're seeing an arms race with Iran feeling that based on precedent and history, the Iran-Iraq war, the fact that the French, the British, other European allies and America helped Saddam attack Iran after its '79 revolution when it was perceived to be weak. The Iranians, fast forward to today, believe that they need to give international commitments such as non-proliferation of nuclear weapons and making sure that atomic nuclear technology is done for peaceful needs, but they also need to maintain their defense. That means upping their missile ballistic testing, because they believe they cannot rely on international law and international agreements to safeguard their defense and safeguard any aggressive intent or dishonest intent from the United States. And with many respects, Trump's decision to withdraw from the nuclear deal signals that. It not only isolates the United States but also empowers hardliners in Iran. The Ayatollah Khamenei himself stating in 2013 that even though it would be a pleasant experience, you could not trust either the US or its European allies. So in this video, we're going to look at ways in which the European allies who have stated that they support the Iran deal, we're going to be looking at how they can push back against the war drums, the march to war, the aggressive language coming out of all quarters, and also some introspection, some reflection from Europeans about their role in the increase of aggression, the arms race, as well as nuclear proliferation. First of all, nations like France, Germany, and the UK have to stop their sales to Sunni Gulf rivals of Iran. Now, Iran is justified in stating that it is surrounded by US bases, by Western allies, as well as by Israel and the GCC nations who seek to create a cage of containment. This, coupled with the context and historical precedent of the Iraq War, the Iraq invasion of 2003, as well as the so-called plan to attack 7 countries in under 5 to 9 years, justifies the Iranians' fear that they need to not only invest in indigenous weaponry, drone technology, expand their proxies throughout the region in order to safeguard themselves, but also that they need to test more ballistic missiles programs in order to protect themselves. First Baghdad, next Damascus, in the future possibly Tehran. With France investing so heavily in sales to Bahrain, to Saudi Arabia, it's important that the Europeans are consistent in action as well as words. You want to save the nuclear agreement, you want to lower tensions, then you have to readdress your relationship with Israel to be one of constructive criticism and action, as well as withdrawing from many military and intelligence agreements with some of the Sunni Gulf monarchies. There has to be a commitment from the European end to grow business and trade with Iran. Germany has done this in terms of electrical engineering and as well as investment in transport, usually electric railways, as well as car manufacturing in Iran. France, which has invested and done huge amounts of deals with Saudi Arabia, not only this year but in previous years with arms deals as well as cultural expansion, needs to really up its game when it comes to creating more leverage and more dialogue with Iran. It's important also that the UK, although it's arguably made itself irrelevant through Brexit, also needs to up its game. Not only the Europeans need to think about more trade, upping diplomatic stakes and links, but also more trips immediately in the aftermath of this decision. But what Europeans also need to think about is fast-forwarding rules which will circumvent US sanctions for European businesses. It's important that the European Union acts united. The UK, with Brexit, has gone in an irrelevant direction. Boris Johnson has stated that he will do whatever he can to make sure UK businesses in Iran will not be affected by US sanctions, but now it's time for Europeans to put their money where their mouth is. The European Parliament and the Commission, as well as European capitals, need to be ready to pass laws that can allow their companies to circumvent US sanctions. Why is this important? Well, it's important for the sake of the Iranian people who are caught between mismanagement of the economy at home and also aggression from Saudi Arabia, Israel and the US abroad. But it's also important because people, regardless of what nation that they're in, have to believe in the idea of international law and international agreements and international agencies. The Iranian people, especially the young, are hungry for a revitalizing of the relationship between Iran and the West. They put their hope in President Rouhani and also in Foreign Minister Jarrod Zarif. Finally, given that the US has isolated itself by withdrawing from the Iran deal, it's vital that Europe looks for other partners, even partners of which it disagrees majorly on other points of geopolitics, namely Russia and China. There are issues when it comes to human rights, when it comes to freedom of expression, and Europe must maintain pressure on those issues. But when it comes to geopolitics in terms of what's happening in West Asia, / the Middle East, it's vital that we think about Russia's input in Syria, the wider issues with regards to Israel and Iran's rivalry in Syria, the expansion of Iranian assets and proxies, but also thinking about the influence that Russia can bring to bear in terms of talks between Israel and Iran and lowering that tension within the region that's starting to bubble up, given that the US has full-heartedly given its backing to any action that the Israelis will do in Syria or any ratcheting up of tensions or a wider regional war. Europe has to look at widening its options for partners in the region.